more than anything. I could have used a speed test to test the Z speed of the particles, so that when they start moving upwards I can pass them on to the next event. And the reason why I've got these two different events is that when the bubbles go downwards, they're being plunged into the water and they're moving quite quickly, and you wouldn't expect them to have that sort of bubbling, zigzagging motion. You just expect them to sort of plunge downwards and go down and then start going upwards, and then maybe when they're going upwards then to start, you know, wobbling from side to side as they go upwards. So that's why I've used this two-stage effect here. So when they reach the second stage, you can see the force of gravity is still having an effect on them. The wind is having an effect on them, the force, the drag, and you can see the collision deflectors there. And what that is doing is it's waiting for the particles to reach the surface, and when they do, if I press play, you'll see that when the particles reach the surface, they're actually killed off. So that actually keeps our particle count really light, and you can see our particle producing tablets then bobble around and so forth. So you can see that this tablet here, this effect only has its place at the beginning of the effect, and it's just there to give you those big bubbles which are being pulled down as the tablet plunges into the water. So I'll just turn that off, and you can see here this next flow here. The reason why there are two is because there are two tablets, and I wanted the particles positioned on the surface, and if I tried to put both tablets into a position object, then the particles would be placed randomly, but then when they pass to another event, the random positions would be swapped around, and that wasn't really what I wanted. So in this case it was just easier to duplicate the entire flow and change over the tablets from, you know, left tablet to right tablet and so forth, and make that particular effect specific to each tablet. It works exactly the same as the left tablet, so I won't run through what that actually does any further. Then we have tablets fizz, and it's actually got right there, but it's actually not right. It's actually for both tablets. So if I just rename that, there we go. Now tablets fizz, that produces bubbles. It's as simple as that. So if I just go down here, turn it on, and press play, you can see the bubbles come down, and you can see there are bubbles. They're being displayed as dots. You know, that's just to keep the display nice and clear. You can actually see them all. Now, something I had to do, if you actually look at the properties here on the fizzy bubbles, you can see I've turned off cast shadows, and I've actually turned off cast shadows here as well, and I believe I've also turned off cast shadows on these here, because in each of these events these are actually rendering out particles. And what I discovered was that, you know, I'm using a shadow map just because it renders faster, and you know, the shadow maps are producing opaque shadows, and the bubbles appear to be transparent, but it just, you know, they're producing opaque shadows from transparent bubbles, and it just looks really bad. The tablets became very, very heavily shadowed from the, you know, the light shining down, and it did look way too dark in the final render. So the easiest thing to do was to just turn off the shadow casting for the bubbles, and for, you know, all the other elements that rendered. Obviously leaving the tablet shadow casting turned on, and that produced a much sort of a nicer looking, lighter effect in the end. To produce a nicer looking render, you probably want to use a ray tracer. Turn shadow casting back on, have the shadow casting be ray trace shadow, so it's nice transparent shadows, which will look much more realistic. I'd probably have soft shadows turned on, caustics, so you get nice caustic effects from the bubbles, and also put in some sort of surface object up here for the water and get some caustic lighting effects coming down onto the tablets. It will look much more realistic. The only reason I haven't done it for this DVD is A, it's not meant to be a finished effect, and B, if I did do it that way, it would take probably 3 weeks to render, because I don't have a massive render farm. So that's something to bear in mind. You know, at the end of the day, what matters is what's acceptable for the end result that you're working for. So in this case, we've got a birth value, and if I press play and we watch the birth value, you can see I've actually animated it here. You can see the values increasing. It's going up, and it's just hand animated. It's just there to start off on 0, and then as the particles come down, as the tablets, splash into the water, then the fizziness increases, and by the end you can see the rate is up to, you know, very high values. I think it goes up to like 8,000 or something in the end, as the bubbles bubble.